Have you ever felt like you're carrying a weight that no one else can see? Maybe you've been fighting battles that no one understands and your strength feels drained. You wake up each day feeling like you're walking through life with a heavy burden on your shoulders, and no one knows how exhausted you truly are. Your spirit is crushed, and the fight seems endless. But here's the truth I want you to hear today. You are not alone. In those moments when you feel like giving up, there's a life-changing truth waiting for you. You don't have to keep struggling in silence. You don't have to fight these battles by yourself. God is ready to step in. He is here to breathe new life into your weary soul. He is ready to speak to you, to remind you that you are not forgotten. He is not distant. He is close, and he is ready to restore your strength. Listen to this. Imagine hearing these words, not from someone far away, but from the one who created you. Hear him say, "My child, I am your strength. I am your shield. I am your ever-present help in times of trouble." This isn't just a comforting phrase, it's a powerful promise from the creator of everything, spoken directly to your heart. It's a reminder that no matter how tough life gets, God has not and will not leave you to face it alone. Before we dive deeper into prayer, before we explore the fullness of God's strength and what he's offering you today, I want you to pause. I want you to take a deep breath and lean into this moment. Don't just hear these words as background noise. Really listen. Focus. This moment right here could be the turning point in your life. It could be the moment you stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders by yourself. It could be the moment you realize that God is here, not as a distant figure, but as someone who is fully present, ready to empower you and renew your strength. Too often we go through life trying to handle everything on our own, thinking we have to be strong all the time, but that's not the case. God is inviting you into a new reality, a reality where you don't have to do it alone. When you lean into him, when you let his power flow through you, you will find that the burdens you carry begin to feel lighter. The strength you need, the strength you feel you've lost, is not something you have to generate yourself. It is something God is ready to pour into you. From a personal perspective, I feel that we often forget just how close God is in our moments of struggle. We think we need to solve everything ourselves, but the truth is that God's strength is always available. All we need to do is stop, pause, and listen. So today, I want to challenge you to stop and listen to what God is saying to you right now. This could be the breakthrough moment you've been waiting for. Embrace it. Let his strength fill you, and trust that he will carry you through the storm. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed by the weight of life. The challenges, the struggles, the constant demands, it all piles up. And in the midst of it all, you might begin to question, am I strong enough for this? Can I really keep going? It feels like there's a constant battle happening inside you. Your body may be tired, your mind may be exhausted, and your spirit may feel worn out. But here's the thing you need to understand. Strength is not something you create on your own. True strength comes from God. You see, strength isn't about how much you can handle on your own. It's about tapping into a power that's greater than yourself. It's about leaning into the strength that God provides, knowing that he will never leave you or forsake you. The truth is, God has already equipped you with everything you need to face whatever comes your way. You may not feel it right now, but he has placed his strength within you, and all you have to do is tap into it. When you feel like you can't take another step, that's when God steps in. When you feel like you're at the end of your rope, that's when God's strength becomes most evident. He doesn't just give you strength for the easy moments. He gives you strength for the hard ones, the moments when you feel like you're about to break, when everything seems to be falling apart. Those are the moments when you need his strength the most, and those are the moments when he is most ready to pour his power into you. But here's the thing. God's strength doesn't just magically appear when we need it. It's always available to us, but we must choose to tap into it. It's a daily decision to trust in his power and to rely on him instead of our own abilities. When we choose to surrender our worries, our fears, and our struggles to God, we make space for his strength to flow through us. I want to challenge you right now. Stop relying solely on your own strength. It's okay to acknowledge that you don't have it all together. It's okay to admit that you're tired. But what's important is that you turn to God and allow his strength to fill the empty spaces in your heart. When you do this, you will find that you can face anything with confidence, knowing that the creator of the universe is fighting alongside you. I personally believe that many of us try to push through life's challenges on our own because we fear vulnerability. We don't want to admit that we need help. But the truth is, it's okay to need God's strength. In fact, it's in those moments of weakness that His power is most evident. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. So, instead of hiding from your struggles, turn to Him. Let His power be made known in your life. As you begin to lean into God's strength, it's important to remember that His strength isn't just about getting through the tough moments, it's also about thriving in them. God doesn't just want you to survive. He wants you to rise above. His strength isn't limited to helping you endure. It empowers you to overcome, to move forward with purpose and confidence, no matter how fierce the storm may be. When we look at the Bible, we see countless examples of people who, in their weakest moments, experience God's strength in incredible ways. Take the story of Gideon, for example. Gideon was hiding in fear when God called him to lead an army against the Midianites. In that moment, he felt anything but strong. But God didn't see him as weak. He saw him as a mighty warrior. God's strength doesn't rely on your perception of yourself. It's not about what you think you can do. It's about what God can do through you. What you might see as a weakness, God sees as an opportunity for His strength to be made manifest. You see, God isn't looking for perfect people. He's not looking for the strongest, the most skilled, or the most experienced. He's looking for people who are willing to surrender their weaknesses to Him so that He can turn them into strengths. The power to overcome life's battles comes not from your own abilities, but from God's power working within you. One of the greatest lies we often tell ourselves is that we need to be strong on our own in order to succeed. We think we need to have it all together to appear strong and capable to the world. But that's not the reality. In fact, it's the very opposite of what God wants for us. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness, and it's when we acknowledge our inability to do it on our own that we give God the opportunity to show up and do the impossible. Personally, I believe that we often make life harder than it needs to be by trying to do it all on our own. We think that if we don't rely on our own strength, we're somehow failing, but that's a lie. In fact, it's in those moments when we surrender to God's strength that we experience true freedom. We don't have to carry the weight of the world anymore. We don't have to be perfect. We just need to trust that God's strength will carry us through every battle we face. God's strength isn't just there for the big battles. It's there for the small moments too, the moments when you're overwhelmed with the responsibilities of life, the moments when you feel like you're not enough. In those moments, God is right there with you, offering His strength to help you press on. So I encourage you, don't try to fight life's battles alone. Don't let pride or fear hold you back from tapping into the strength that's available to you. Surrender your weaknesses to God and watch how He transforms them into sources of power and victory. There's something incredibly powerful about surrendering our weaknesses to God. It's not a sign of failure, it's a declaration of trust. Trust that He knows exactly what you need, even when you can't see the way forward. Trust that He sees the bigger picture when all you can see are the obstacles in front of you. And trust that in His timing, He will give you the strength to overcome anything. But here's the thing. Surrender doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean waiting for things to magically get better without any effort on your part. Surrendering to God's strength is about actively choosing to rely on Him, even when everything around you seems uncertain. It's about making a decision to move forward even when you're afraid, because you know that you're not alone. God's strength is with you every step of the way. The Apostle Paul spoke about this very idea in 2 Corinthians 12-9, when he said, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Paul understood that in his weakest moments, God's power was most evident. He wasn't afraid to acknowledge his struggles because he knew that God's strength would carry him through. This is where true strength lies, when we stop trying to pretend that we have it all together and we acknowledge that we need God's help. It's in that moment of surrender that God's power can move through us in ways we never imagined. When we let go of our need for control, we allow God to step in and take the lead. And that's when the real transformation begins. I know that in today's world, there's a lot of pressure to be self-sufficient. We're told that we need to do it all on our own, to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and to never show weakness. But this mindset only leaves us feeling drained, overwhelmed, and disconnected from the very strength that God offers us. The truth is, The most powerful thing you can do is admit that you need help. And the moment you do, God is right there, ready to fill you with his strength. Personally, I've learned that the more I try to handle things on my own, the more exhausted and frustrated I become. But when I choose to surrender and trust in God's strength, that's when I begin to experience true peace. That's when I find the energy and clarity I need to move forward. God's strength doesn't just help you survive, it enables you to thrive. So, don't be afraid to surrender your weaknesses to God. Don't be afraid to admit that you can't do it alone. When you let go and trust him, you will find that his strength is more than enough to carry you through every trial, every challenge, and every obstacle you face. You are not meant to do life alone. You are meant to rely on the power of the one who created you and knows you better than anyone else. You might be asking yourself right now, what does it actually look like to rely on God's strength day in and day out? It's one thing to understand in theory that God is our strength, but it's another thing entirely to live that truth out when life feels overwhelming. So, let me break it down for you. Relying on God's strength doesn't mean we never face challenges. It means we face those challenges with confidence because we know that we're not facing them alone. It means that when the weight of the world is pressing down on us, we don't crumble under the pressure. Instead, we stand firm, knowing that God is the one who holds us up. His strength is what gives us the resilience to keep moving forward, even when we don't have the strength to take another step. The first step in relying on God's strength is to acknowledge that you can't do it all on your own. This is a mindset shift. We have to stop thinking that we need to be self-sufficient and start realizing that we were never meant to carry life's burdens by ourselves. When you acknowledge your limitations, you create space for God's power to work in your life. The second step is to actively seek God's presence every day. This means starting your day with prayer, reading his word, and meditating on his promises. It means asking God for the strength you need to face the challenges of that day and trusting that he will provide. When we make God a priority, we position ourselves to receive his strength. It's like charging a battery. If you don't plug it in, it won't work. Similarly, if you don't connect with God, you won't experience the strength he offers. I've seen this truth play out time and time again in my own life. There have been countless moments when I felt completely drained, when I felt like I was running on empty. But in those moments, I learned to turn to God and say, Lord, I need your strength. I can't do this on my own. And without fail, he has always provided. Not just enough to get by, but more than enough to thrive. God's strength is never limited. It's always abundant. Another key to relying on God's strength is learning to rest in his promises. Life can be exhausting, and the constant demands can leave us feeling like we're barely keeping our heads above water. But when we rest in God's promises, we find peace and comfort. We remember that he is in control, that he will provide for us, and that he will never leave us. Resting in these promises isn't about passivity. It's about trusting that God is working even when we can't see it. From a personal perspective, I've had to learn the hard way that God's strength is often most evident in moments of rest. We live in a world that glorifies hustle and constant movement, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause, reflect, and trust that God is working even when you're not. When we rest in his presence, we allow his strength to fill us. And that's when we're able to keep going with renewed energy. So, if you find yourself overwhelmed today, take a moment to rest in God's strength. Stop trying to handle everything on your own. Surrender your burdens to him and trust that he is more than capable of carrying you through. His strength is enough, and it will never run out. When you rely on him, you will find the strength to do what you cannot do on your own. It's often easy to think of God's strength as something we only tap into in moments of crisis or extreme struggle. We may think that we only need his strength when we're facing life's biggest challenges, but the truth is, we need his strength every single day. Whether we're facing a difficult situation, dealing with stress at work, or just managing the everyday demands of life, God's strength is essential in every moment. This is where the real power of relying on God's strength comes in. It's not just for the big battles, but for the small, everyday moments that often drain us the most. How many times have you found yourself feeling overwhelmed by the little things? The constant rush, the endless tasks, the demands that never seem to stop? These moments may not seem as dramatic as facing a major crisis, but they are no less exhausting. Relying on God's strength in these everyday moments is just as important as relying on him in times of great difficulty. It's about inviting God into every aspect of your life, your work, your relationships, your health, your dreams. It's about remembering that God is with you in every step, and He is ready to provide the strength you need to handle whatever comes your way. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus invites us to bring our burdens to Him. In Matthew 11:28-30, He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This invitation is not just for times of crisis, it's for every moment of life. Jesus offers us rest, peace, and strength, no matter what we are facing. Personally, I've found that when I invite God into the everyday moments, I experience a deep sense of peace and purpose. The tasks that once felt overwhelming suddenly become manageable, because I know that I'm not doing them alone. And even when things don't go as planned, I can still trust that God's strength is carrying me through. The key is to make God a part of every moment. It's easy to rely on your own strength when things are going well, but it's even more important to turn to Him when things feel chaotic or stressful. When you invite God into your day-to-day life, you open yourself up to a deeper connection with Him, and you begin to see the world through His eyes, full of peace, purpose, and strength. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed by the small things, remember that God is there ready to help. You don't have to carry the weight of your responsibilities alone. Turn to Him and let His strength fill you with the power to keep moving forward. No matter how big or small the task, God is with you, and His strength is enough. In this journey of relying on God's strength, there's something crucial to remember. It's not just about asking for His strength when we need it most. It's about building a relationship with Him that enables us to tap into that strength at any moment. That means developing a lifestyle of connection, one where you are consistently seeking God, leaning into His presence, and learning from Him each day. When we build this kind of relationship with God, His strength doesn't just become a safety net when we fall. It becomes the foundation of our entire lives. We don't just call on Him in the big moments of crisis. We grow accustomed to His presence, to living in His power daily. And when we do this, we realize that His strength isn't something we turn to only in times of weakness. It's something that continually fuels us and enables us to live the life He has called us to live. This lifestyle of connection starts with one simple step: making God a priority. That means putting Him first in everything you do. It means spending time with Him, not just when you need something, but because you want to know Him better. Prayer, reading the Bible, worship. These are the practices that keep you rooted in His strength. And just like a tree needs water to grow, we need daily nourishment from God's Word to sustain us. It's easy to fall into the trap of only turning to God when we are desperate, but that's not how a strong relationship works. If you only call on someone when you need something, it doesn't build a deep connection. The real strength comes from walking closely with God every day, trusting in Him, and learning to rely on His power in every situation. When you build this relationship with God, His strength becomes a natural part of your life. It becomes the lens through which you see everything. It's no longer about trying to handle life on your own. It's about recognizing that God is with you in every moment, and He is ready to empower you to live out the life He has planned for you. From my own experience, I've learned that the more I cultivate this relationship with God, the more I'm able to experience His strength in my daily life. It's not always easy, and there are still moments when I feel weak or overwhelmed, but when I turn to God consistently, I find that His strength is always enough. And what's more, I find that His strength gives me the courage to keep moving forward, even when the road is tough. The beauty of relying on God's strength is that it's not just about getting through the tough times, it's about thriving in them. It's about finding joy, peace, and purpose, even in the midst of life's challenges. It's about knowing that no matter what you face, you don't have to do it alone. God's strength is with you every step of the way, and He is always ready to help you rise above. So, today, I want to encourage you. Don't wait for a crisis to start relying on God's strength. Start now. Build that relationship with Him every single day, and let His strength become the foundation of your life. No matter what you face, no matter how impossible the situation seems, God's strength will be more than enough to carry you through. As you continue to rely on God's strength and build a deeper relationship with Him, there's one powerful aspect of His strength that cannot be overlooked. His strength enables us to be a light to others. God doesn't just empower us for our own benefit. He strengthens us so that we can be a source of strength and encouragement to those around us. Think about it for a moment. When you experience God's strength in your own life, it transforms you. It gives you a new perspective, a renewed sense of purpose, and a deep inner peace that the world cannot give. But that transformation isn't just for your benefit, it's for the benefit of others as well. When you allow God's strength to fill you, it becomes contagious. It's a light that shines in the darkness, a beacon of hope for those who are struggling. In Matthew 5:14-16, Jesus tells us, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This passage reminds us that our strength, fueled by God, is not meant to be hidden. It's meant to be shared. When we allow God's strength to work through us, we become vessels of His light in the world. We become a source of encouragement and hope to those who need it most. When we face struggles and challenges with God's strength, we're not just proving to ourselves that we can overcome, we're showing others that they can too. You see, the power of God's strength isn't just for personal gain. It's for spreading His love, His peace, and His hope to those around us. I personally believe that one of the greatest gifts we can give to others is the testimony of how God has worked in our own lives. When people see us standing strong in the midst of adversity, when they witness God's strength enabling us to endure and overcome, it opens their eyes to the possibility of experiencing that same strength. Our lives become living proof of God's power. You don't have to be perfect to be a light. You don't have to have everything figured out. In fact, it's often in our moments of weakness that God's strength shines the brightest. When others see you trusting in God's power, they're drawn to Him. They begin to see that the strength you have is not from yourself, but from the one who is always with you, empowering you to be more than you ever thought possible. So today, I want to challenge you to be a light to others. Allow God's strength to fill you, and then share that strength with those around you. Don't keep it to yourself. Let your life be a reflection of His love and power. When you do, you'll not only be transformed, you'll help transform the lives of others. As we continue this journey of relying on God's strength, we must recognize that God's strength is not just for overcoming challenges and helping others. It's also about embracing the life He has called us to live. This life is meant to be one of purpose, of impact, and of transformation. God has a unique plan for each one of us, and His strength is the key that enables us to walk in that purpose with confidence. But what does it look like to walk in your God-given purpose? How do you know when you're truly living the life He's designed for you? It all starts with the understanding that God's strength is the fuel for the journey. It's not about your own ability to make things happen or to achieve success by your own effort. It's about trusting that God's strength is sufficient for every step you take. The Apostle Paul speaks to this very truth in Philippians 4:13, where he says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." This powerful verse is not just a statement of personal achievement. It's a declaration of total dependence on God. It's a reminder that no matter where God is calling you, no matter what He is asking you to do, His strength will always be enough. When we walk in God's strength, we walk in confidence. We walk knowing that we are not relying on our own limited resources, but on the limitless power of the Creator of the universe. This means that no dream is too big. No calling is too great. When God calls you to something, He equips you with the strength to fulfill it. In my own life, I've learned that the moments when I felt the most uncertain about my purpose were the moments when I was trying to do things in my own strength. But when I surrendered to God's plan, when I relied on His strength, I found a deep sense of peace and clarity. The path became clearer, and the obstacles no longer seemed insurmountable. It was His strength working in and through me that allowed me to step into my purpose with confidence. God doesn't call us to live in fear or uncertainty. He calls us to live boldly, to pursue the things He has set before us with courage and strength. And that strength is always available to us if we are willing to rely on it. Walking in your God-given purpose requires you to trust that God's strength will enable you to do the things He has called you to do, even when the path seems uncertain. But walking in purpose doesn't mean that life will be without challenges. In fact, the journey will often be difficult, but God's strength is what will carry you through. It will give you the endurance to keep going when you feel like giving up. It will provide you with the courage to face the unknown, and it will empower you to fulfill your calling with confidence, knowing that you are never alone. So, I encourage you today, embrace the life God has called you to live. Walk in His strength, trust His plan, and take bold steps forward. No matter what challenges lie ahead, you can face them with confidence, because God's strength is with you every step of the way. As we talk about walking in the strength that God provides, it's essential to remember that relying on God's strength is not a one-time decision. It's a continual choice that we make every day. Life is full of distractions, challenges, and temptations that can easily pull us away from relying on God's power. But it's in those moments of distraction or doubt that we need His strength the most. There will be times when you're tempted to rely on your own abilities, to fall back on your own strength, and to try to do it all by yourself. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you have to handle everything on your own, that you have to be self-sufficient to be successful. But the truth is, this mindset will only lead to burnout, frustration, and exhaustion. God never intended for us to live like this. He created us to depend on Him, to rely on His strength every day. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." This verse is a powerful reminder that we are not meant to rely on our own wisdom or strength. When we trust in God and lean on His understanding, He makes our paths straight. He provides the direction and strength we need to navigate life's challenges. But how do we make that choice every day? It begins with a heart of humility, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we can't do it on our own, and that we need God's help. It means waking up each day with a mindset that says, "Lord, I can't do this without you. I need your strength to get through today." This is not a sign of weakness, it's a declaration of trust and faith in the one who created you. Each day is a new opportunity to lean into God's strength. Whether it's facing a difficult situation at work, managing personal struggles, or simply trying to get through the day, God is ready and willing to provide the strength you need. All you have to do is ask. From my own experience, I've found that when I make this daily decision to rely on God's strength, my perspective changes. I stop trying to control everything, and I start trusting that God has a plan, even when things don't go as expected. I've learned to approach each day with a sense of peace, knowing that God's strength is more than enough to handle whatever comes my way. It's a daily choice to surrender, to trust, and to lean into the power that is always available to me. The beauty of relying on God's strength every day is that it doesn't matter what happens. Even when things are tough, I know that I'm not facing them alone. God's power is always at work within me, giving me the strength I need to persevere. It's a strength that doesn't come from within me, it comes from Him. And because of that, I know I can face anything with confidence. So, I want to encourage you today. Make that daily choice to rely on God's strength. Start each day by surrendering your plans, your struggles, and your worries to Him. Trust that He will provide everything you need, and allow His strength to carry you through. It's not about being perfect. It's about trusting in the one who is. And when you do, you'll find that His strength is always enough. As we continue to focus on God's strength, there's something incredibly important to realize. God's strength doesn't just empower us to overcome obstacles. It transforms us in the process. The strength He gives isn't just about surviving difficulties. It's about becoming stronger, wiser, and more aligned with His purpose. Each challenge we face, each struggle we endure, is an opportunity for us to grow in the strength that God provides. And when we rely on His strength, we don't just emerge from the trial. We emerge transformed with greater faith and deeper trust in God's ability to carry us through. This is why it's so important to lean into His power rather than relying on our own. Romans 5:3-5 reminds us of this transformation. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. This passage shows us that God doesn't just use our struggles to strengthen us. He uses them to refine our character. Our perseverance through hardships leads to character, strength of heart and mind, and ultimately to hope. This hope is not just wishful thinking. It is the unshakable assurance that God is always with us and that He will never let us down. When we experience this transformation, we become more resilient, more patient, more compassionate toward others. We start to see things through a different lens, one that is shaped by God's strength and his love. The difficulties that once seemed insurmountable become opportunities for us to trust God more deeply. We begin to realize that each trial is a stepping stone toward becoming the person God has designed us to be. Personally, I've witnessed how God's strength has transformed my own life. There were times when I thought I couldn't keep going, when I felt like I was at my breaking point. But as I surrendered to his strength and trusted in his plan, I saw how those experiences shaped me. I grew stronger, more confident, and more aware of God's presence in my life. And I can tell you from experience, this kind of transformation is priceless. This process of transformation is a vital part of walking in God's strength. It's not just about making it through life's hardships. It's about being changed in the process, becoming more like Christ as we rely on his power. God is not just interested in helping us get through tough times. He's interested in molding us, refining our character, and building us into the people he has called us to be. Each time we lean into his strength, we become a little more like him, a little more grounded in his love, and a little more prepared for whatever life throws our way. So, today, I want to encourage you, don't just look at your struggles as something to get through. See them as an opportunity for God to refine you, to strengthen you, and to shape you into the person he created you to be. Trust in his strength to carry you through, and know that on the other side of every challenge is a stronger, more faithful version of you. As we continue to lean into God's strength, it's crucial to remember that this strength is not only for our personal growth and endurance, it's also for our mission in the world. We are not just given God's strength to survive, we are empowered to impact the world around us. God equips us to be agents of change, to share his love, and to spread his hope wherever we go. This idea of being vessels of God's strength has a powerful purpose. God calls us to be his hands and feet, to reach out to those who are struggling, to share his message of love, and to demonstrate his strength in the way we live our lives. Our lives, empowered by his strength, become testimonies to others of what he can do. When people see us standing firm in God's power, they are drawn to the source of that strength. They begin to see that the God we serve is real, active, and present in our lives. The Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 6:10, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power." Paul is urging us to tap into God's strength, not just for personal perseverance, but for the purpose of fulfilling our calling. This strength is not just for survival, it's for transformation. It's for the building of God's kingdom here on earth. When we rely on God's strength, we are equipped to do his work, to love those around us, and to stand firm in our faith no matter what challenges we face. I believe this is one of the most powerful aspects of relying on God's strength, the opportunity to live a life that reflects his power to others. You don't have to be in a position of leadership or authority to be a vessel for God's strength. You don't have to have a public platform. Your life filled with his strength will speak volumes to those around you, whether it's in your home, your workplace, your community, or even in your everyday interactions. You can be a living testimony of God's power and love. From my own experience, I've seen how God's strength can transform not only my own life, but the lives of those around me. When I've leaned into his strength, I've been able to serve others, show love to those who need it, and be a source of encouragement to those who are struggling. God's strength in us is meant to be shared. It's meant to flow out of us and touch others in ways we can't even imagine. This is why it's so important to rely on God's strength every day. It's not just for you, it's for the people you're called to serve. It's for your family, your friends, your co-workers, and anyone you come into contact with. As you rely on God's strength, you become a conduit of his love and power to the world. So, today, I want to challenge you to view your reliance on God's strength as more than just a personal journey. See it as part of a larger mission. God has called you to be a light in the world, and the strength he provides is the fuel that allows you to shine brightly. Whether you're facing personal struggles or thriving in life, you are called to be an example of God's love and strength to those around you. Allow his power to work in you and watch how it transforms not just your life, but the lives of others. As we continue to explore the profound impact of God's strength in our lives, it's important to understand that this strength is not just about personal resilience. It's about deepening our relationship with God and trusting him in every area of our lives. It's about moving from a place of self-reliance to full dependence on the one who created us and knows us best. One of the greatest misconceptions about strength is that it's something we generate on our own. The world often tells us that we must be self-sufficient, that true strength is found in independence and self-determination. But in God's kingdom, the greatest strength comes from surrender. It's in surrendering our will to His, trusting that He knows the best path for us, and relying on His strength that we find true power. Jesus speaks about this in John 15:5, where He says, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." This verse is a powerful reminder that our strength doesn't come from within ourselves. It comes from remaining in Him. When we stay connected to Jesus, when we depend on His strength, we bear fruit. We experience His power in our lives and can accomplish things that we never could on our own. The key to living in God's strength is learning to abide in Him daily. This is not a one-time decision. It's a continual choice to stay close to God, to remain in His presence, and to trust Him in all things. The more we lean into Him, the more we tap into the limitless supply of strength that He offers. I can tell you from my own experience, there's a marked difference between trying to rely on my own strength and relying on God's strength. When I try to handle things on my own, I quickly become exhausted, overwhelmed, and frustrated. But when I lean into God, when I trust Him with the outcome, there is a peace that surpasses all understanding. I find that His strength is more than enough to get me through any situation. Abiding in God's strength doesn't mean life will be without challenges. In fact, you may face difficulties that test you to your core. But it's in those moments when you feel weak and powerless that God's strength is most evident. It's when we surrender, when we stop relying on ourselves, that God's power is made perfect in our weakness. The Apostle Paul's words in 2 Corinthians 12-9 ring true in these moments. "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Paul understood that true strength comes not from our own abilities, but from embracing our weaknesses and allowing God to work through them. When we learn to abide in God's strength, we stop trying to control everything. We trust that He will provide, that He will guide us, and that He will empower us to do what He's called us to do. We stop striving in our own strength and begin to experience the peace and power that come from living in His presence. So, today, I encourage you to take that next step in your journey of relying on God's strength. Abide in Him. Spend time in His Word. Seek His guidance in prayer. Trust Him with your heart, your mind, and your soul. As you remain in Him, you will find that His strength is more than enough to carry you through any situation. You don't have to do it alone. God's power is available to you at all times. So stay connected, lean into His strength, and watch how He transforms your life. As we continue our journey of relying on God's strength, it's vital to understand that His strength is also there to guide us, to give us wisdom, and to empower us to make decisions that align with His will. Too often, we face uncertainty, especially when we're presented with choices that seem overwhelming or unclear. But in those moments, God's strength isn't just for endurance, it's for guidance. His strength leads us through the fog of confusion and into the clarity of His purpose. James 1-5 offers us a powerful promise. "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." This verse reminds us that God is not just a source of strength for our physical and emotional needs. He is also a source of wisdom for our decisions. Whenever you feel uncertain about which direction to take, God's strength is there to guide you. All we have to do is ask for it, and He will provide it generously. The beauty of relying on God's strength in decision-making is that we don't have to rely solely on our own understanding. We don't have to be experts or have all the answers. Instead, we can trust that God will guide us, that He will give us the wisdom we need to make choices that honor Him and align with His will. But how do we tap into this wisdom? First, it begins with a heart that is willing to listen. It's about taking the time to pray, to ask God for direction, and to spend time in His Word. The Bible is full of wisdom and guidance for every situation we face. When we read and meditate on Scripture, we gain insight into God's heart and mind, and we begin to see the world through His perspective. Second, it's about being open to the Holy Spirit's leading. Sometimes the wisdom we need doesn't come through an audible voice or a clear sign. It comes through the quiet prompting of the Holy Spirit within us. As we walk closely with God, we become more attuned to His voice, and we begin to recognize when He's guiding us in a particular direction. Personally, I've found that when I lean into God's strength for wisdom, I often feel a sense of peace that accompanies my decisions. It's not always an instant or clear answer, but there's a quiet confidence that comes when I know that God is leading me. And when I look back on those decisions, I can see how His guidance was at work, even when I didn't fully understand it at the time. The strength God provides doesn't just help us endure trials or face challenges, it also helps us make decisions that align with His purpose. It empowers us to move forward with confidence, knowing that we are walking in His will. And when we rely on God's strength to guide us, we can rest assured that we're on the right path. So, today, if you're facing a decision or a moment of uncertainty, I encourage you to ask God for wisdom. Seek His guidance, trust in His strength, and know that He will provide what you need. You don't have to rely on your own understanding. When you rely on God, you can move forward with confidence, knowing that His strength and wisdom are guiding you every step of the way. As we continue to understand and embrace God's strength, it's important to recognize that God's strength doesn't just come to us in the form of personal empowerment. It's also meant to empower us to serve others. God equips us not only to face our own battles, but also to reach out and help those around us, to be a source of encouragement and strength to others in their times of need. The reality is, we are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We are called to love our neighbors as ourselves, to care for the hurting, and to offer support to those in need. And the strength that God gives us is the very power we need to do this, to be a blessing to others, to serve them, and to show them the love of Christ. In Galatians 6:2, the Apostle Paul writes, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." This verse is a powerful reminder that part of our calling is to help bear the burdens of others. God has given us His strength so that we can extend it to those around us. Whether it's offering a listening ear, providing physical help, or offering words of encouragement, God calls us to use His strength to serve others. When we serve others, we reflect the love and strength of God. Think about the way Jesus served during His time on earth. He didn't come to be served, but to serve. He healed the sick, comforted the brokenhearted, and offered hope to the hopeless. His entire life was a model of sacrificial love and service. And we, as His followers, are called to do the same. But here's the thing, serving others isn't always easy. There will be times when it requires sacrifice, when it's inconvenient, when it feels like you're giving more than you can. But this is where God's strength comes in. When we rely on His strength, we are empowered to love and serve even when it's hard. His strength enables us to push past our own limitations, to go beyond our comfort zones, and to make a real difference in the lives of others. I've learned in my own life that there is nothing more fulfilling than serving others with God's strength. There have been times when I felt physically, emotionally, and mentally drained, but when I turned to God, He gave me the strength to keep going. And it was in those moments of service, when I was helping others, that I found a deep sense of purpose and joy. God's strength truly fills us when we pour ourselves out for others. Serving others is not just about doing good deeds, it's about reflecting the heart of God. It's about being a living example of His love and power in the world. And when we allow God's strength to flow through us, we become a source of light and hope to those around us. So, I want to challenge you today. Look for opportunities to serve others. Ask God to show you where He wants you to be a blessing, and trust that He will give you the strength to do it. Whether it's a small act of kindness or a larger sacrifice, God's strength will empower you to serve in ways that make a real difference. As we reflect on the power and strength that God provides, it's essential to recognize that His strength isn't just meant to carry us through tough times. It's also meant to fuel our passion and purpose. God has given each of us unique gifts and talents, and His strength is the power that enables us to use those gifts to their fullest potential. When we rely on His strength, we don't just endure, we thrive. We don't just get by, we excel. This is the beauty of God's strength. It's not only about surviving life's difficulties, but about thriving in the midst of them. It's about tapping into the potential that God has placed inside of you and using it to make a lasting impact. Whether you're called to leadership, creativity, service, or any other role, God's strength equips you to fulfill your purpose in a way that honors Him and brings glory to His name. In Philippians 4:13, Paul writes, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." This verse isn't just about facing hardships. It's about the limitless potential that is available to us through Christ. When we rely on God's strength, we can accomplish things we never thought possible. The same strength that helped Jesus perform miracles is available to us. We are empowered to step into the fullness of our calling and make a difference in the world around us. The key to unlocking this potential is to remain grounded in God's strength, knowing that it is He who gives us the power to succeed. When we align our goals with His will and trust that He will provide the strength we need, we begin to see opportunities open up that we never imagined. God doesn't call us to live small, limited lives. He calls us to live lives full of purpose, passion, and potential. From my own experience, I've seen how powerful it is to step out in faith, trusting that God will provide the strength I need. There have been times when I was hesitant to take a step because I doubted my abilities, but when I relied on God's strength, I found that I was capable of more than I ever imagined. It wasn't about my own power, it was about His. And when I trusted in that power, I was able to accomplish things that seemed impossible at first. God's strength doesn't just carry us through the difficult times, it empowers us to live out our purpose, to make a real difference in the world, and to step into the fullness of what He has called us to do. Whether it's starting a new project, pursuing a dream, or overcoming personal limitations, God's strength is the fuel that enables us to reach our full potential. So today, I encourage you to tap into the strength that God offers. Don't settle for a life of limitation. Trust in His strength to help you step out in faith and pursue your calling with confidence. You are capable of more than you think, and with God's strength, you can accomplish things that will leave a lasting impact. As we dive deeper into understanding the power and purpose of God's strength, it's crucial to understand that this strength isn't just for personal growth and overcoming obstacles. It's also meant to be a source of peace in the midst of life's storms. We live in a world that is constantly filled with noise, distractions, and challenges. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and uncertain about the future. But God's strength provides us with a peace that transcends all of these things, a peace that allows us to remain calm, even when the world around us is in chaos. In Philippians 4:6-7, Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This is such a powerful promise. The peace of God isn't something that comes from our circumstances. It comes from His presence. And it's this peace that allows us to experience calm in the midst of the storm. It's a peace that guards our hearts and minds, protecting us from the anxiety and fear that often try to overwhelm us. When we rely on God's strength, we are also tapping into His peace. This peace isn't a passive feeling, it's an active, powerful force that enables us to remain grounded no matter what challenges we face. It's the strength that allows us to say, "I may not understand what's going on, but I know that God is in control and He will carry me through." It's a peace that helps us trust in God's timing, knowing that He has a plan and that His strength will always be enough to guide us through life's uncertainties. Personally, I've experienced this peace in moments of uncertainty and fear. There have been times when I felt anxious about the future, unsure of what was coming next. But when I turned to God and relied on His strength, I felt His peace wash over me. It wasn't the absence of challenges, but the presence of God's strength that gave me the peace to move forward with confidence. Even when I couldn't see the way ahead, I knew that God was with me, and that was enough to calm my fears. It's important to recognize that this peace doesn't just come when life is easy. It comes in the midst of trials, struggles, and unknowns. When we rely on God's strength, we gain access to a peace that doesn't make sense according to the world's standards. It's a peace that passes all understanding. And it's in that peace that we find the ability to endure, to keep going, and to trust God through everything. God's peace doesn't just protect us from external circumstances, it also guards our hearts and minds from internal turmoil. It keeps us from becoming consumed by anxiety, fear, and worry. Instead of being ruled by our emotions or our circumstances, we are able to remain grounded in God's truth, knowing that He is our protector, our provider, and our strength. So today, if you're facing anxiety, fear, or uncertainty, I encourage you to rely on God's strength and embrace his peace. Present your worries to him, trust in his promises, and allow his peace to guard your heart. You don't have to face life's challenges alone. God's strength is with you, and his peace will sustain you through every storm. As we continue to reflect on the strength that God provides, it's important to understand that his strength isn't just about overcoming the trials we face, it's also about transformation. God's strength doesn't leave us where we are. It works in us to shape and mold us into the people he has created us to be. This process of transformation is central to God's work in our lives. His strength enables us to grow in character, in faith, and in the ability to reflect his love to others. One of the most beautiful aspects of relying on God's strength is that it doesn't just help us to endure or get through difficult situations. It changes us. It transforms our hearts, our minds, and our very nature. The Apostle Paul describes this transformation in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. This transformation begins in our minds. When we rely on God's strength, he begins to renew our thinking. The world tells us to rely on ourselves, to chase after success, and to define our worth by our achievements. But God's strength changes our perspective. It helps us see ourselves through his eyes, as beloved children, created with purpose and empowered to live out that purpose. God's strength also transforms our hearts. It enables us to love when it's difficult, to forgive when it seems impossible, and to show kindness and compassion in a world that can often feel cold and indifferent. When we rely on his strength, we become vessels of his love, showing the world a glimpse of his grace and mercy. This transformation is not just about becoming better versions of ourselves. It's about becoming more like Christ, reflecting his character in all we do. From my own experience, I've seen how God's strength has gradually transformed my life. When I rely on his power, I notice shifts in my attitude, my actions, and my ability to handle life's challenges. His strength doesn't just help me get through tough times, it helps me grow, learn, and become more like him. It's a continuous process of transformation, one that only happens when we surrender to his will and allow him to work in us. This transformation also equips us to fulfill our purpose. When we rely on God's strength, we become more capable of doing the work he has called us to. We can face challenges with perseverance, serve others with love, and walk in the path he has laid out for us with confidence. God's strength doesn't just help us survive, it helps us thrive and live out his good, pleasing, and perfect will for our lives. So today, I want to encourage you to embrace this process of transformation. Allow God's strength to work in you and through you. Let him renew your mind, transform your heart, and equip you to fulfill the purpose he has for your life. As you rely on his strength, you will see that you are not just enduring, you are becoming more and more like Christ, reflecting his love and power to the world around you. As we reflect on the incredible transformation that God's strength brings, it's crucial to realize that this strength also equips us to face the future with hope and confidence. Life is full of uncertainty. None of us know exactly what tomorrow holds. But when we rely on God's strength, we don't have to fear the unknown. His strength empowers us to step into the future with boldness, trusting that he is already there, preparing the way for us. In Isaiah 41:10, God gives us this powerful promise. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. This verse is a beautiful reminder that no matter what the future holds, we do not have to fear. God's strength is already working in our lives, and he promises to be with us every step of the way. The future may be uncertain, but we can face it with confidence, knowing that we are not alone. One of the most powerful things about God's strength is that it doesn't just help us in the present, it also gives us the confidence to face the future. We may not know what challenges lie ahead, but we can rest in the knowledge that God will provide the strength we need when we need it. We don't have to figure it all out on our own or carry the weight of the future. God is already ahead of us, preparing the way and providing the strength for each step we take. Personally, I've experienced this truth in my own life. There have been many times when I felt uncertain about the future, whether it was about my career, relationships, or personal goals. But as I've leaned into God's strength, I've found peace in the midst of uncertainty. I may not know what tomorrow holds, but I know that God is with me, that He will provide the strength I need, and that He has a plan for my life. This confidence allows me to move forward, step by step, knowing that God is in control. Relying on God's strength also gives us the courage to take risks and embrace new opportunities. The fear of failure or the unknown can often hold us back from stepping into new things, whether it's starting a new venture, moving to a new place, or pursuing a dream. But when we trust in God's strength, we realize that we don't have to fear failure. We can step out in faith, knowing that God will give us the strength to overcome whatever challenges come our way. As you look toward the future, I encourage you to trust God's strength. Don't let fear hold you back from pursuing the plans and purposes He has for your life. The future may be unknown, but God is already there, and His strength will be with you every step of the way. You don't have to walk into the future with fear. You can walk into it with hope and confidence, knowing that God's strength is enough to carry you through. So, take a step forward today. Trust that God will provide the strength you need for whatever lies ahead. With His power, you are more than capable of facing the future and stepping into the life He has prepared for you. As we continue to understand the depth of God's strength, it's important to remember that His strength is not just for our personal growth, but also for building and sustaining our faith. Faith is the foundation of our relationship with God, and without faith, it's impossible to fully experience the strength He offers. But here's the beautiful thing. God's strength helps to strengthen our faith. It's in trusting His power and seeing His faithfulness in our lives that our faith grows deeper, stronger, and more unwavering. In 2 Corinthians 12-9, God says to Paul, "But He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." This verse reminds us that God's power isn't diminished by our weaknesses. In fact, it's made perfect in them. It's in our moments of weakness that we get to see the fullness of God's strength at work. This is where our faith is built. When we face challenges and rely on God's strength, we begin to experience His faithfulness in profound ways. Our faith grows not when everything is easy, but when we step out in trust, when we lean on God's strength, and when we see His power at work in our lives. The more we rely on God's strength, the more our faith is strengthened. It's like building muscle. Each time we trust in God, our faith becomes stronger, and we're able to face even bigger challenges with confidence. From my personal experience, I've learned that the more I lean into God's strength, the more my faith grows. There have been moments when I doubted, when I wasn't sure how I was going to get through a particular situation, but in those moments, I saw God's strength at work. I saw Him come through in ways that I couldn't have imagined, and each time my faith grew stronger. It's through these experiences that I learned to trust Him more deeply, and now I know that no matter what I face, I can rely on God's strength to carry me through. Faith isn't something we can produce on our own. It's a gift from God. And the more we rely on His strength, the more He builds and sustains that faith. As our faith grows, so does our ability to experience God's strength in deeper, more meaningful ways. We begin to see that His power isn't just for survival, it's for transformation, for growth, and for moving forward in the purpose He has for our lives. So today, I encourage you to trust in God's strength to build and sustain your faith. Don't try to rely on your own abilities. Trust that God's power will carry you, that His faithfulness will strengthen you, and that through every challenge your faith will grow. The more you lean into Him, the more you will experience His strength at work in your life. Let your faith be a testimony to others of God's power. As you trust Him, you'll see Him come through in ways that will strengthen your faith and deepen your relationship with Him. As we continue to explore the power of God's strength, it's essential to recognize that His strength not only transforms us individually, but also empowers us to build community. One of the most powerful ways God's strength works in our lives is by enabling us to serve and love others in a way that reflects His heart. When we rely on God's strength, we are not only equipped to handle our own struggles, but also to be a source of encouragement and support to those around us. In Galatians 5:13, Paul writes, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." This verse reminds us that we are called to serve others with the strength that God gives us. We are called to be a part of a community that reflects His love, grace, and strength. When we rely on God's power, we are empowered to lift others up, to bear each other's burdens, and to help those in need. Serving others doesn't always mean doing something big or grand. It often involves the small, everyday acts of kindness that show people the love of Christ. Whether it's offering a helping hand, providing a word of encouragement, or simply being present in someone's life, these acts of service are powerful because they are fueled by God's strength. When we serve in His strength, we reflect His love and create a ripple effect of kindness and support that can impact the lives of many. Personally, I've seen how serving others has transformed my own life. There's something deeply fulfilling about stepping out of my own struggles to help someone else, and I've found that when I rely on God's strength, I'm able to give more than I thought I could. It's in those moments of service that I experience God's love most deeply, because I know that I'm living out His purpose to love and serve others. God's strength isn't meant to be hoarded or kept to ourselves. It's meant to be shared with others. We are His hands and feet on this earth, and when we serve others, we make His love tangible. God calls us to use the strength He gives us to build up His community, to encourage one another, and to show the world what it means to live in His love. The beauty of serving in God's strength is that it doesn't come from a place of obligation. It comes from a heart of love and gratitude for all that He has done for us. When we are filled with God's strength, we are naturally compelled to serve others in love, to put their needs above our own, and to walk alongside them in their struggles. It's through this selfless love that we create a strong, supportive community that reflects God's kingdom here on earth. So today, I encourage you to lean into God's strength and find ways to serve those around you. Whether it's in your family, your workplace, your church, or your community, look for opportunities to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Use the strength God has given you to serve humbly, to love generously, and to be a source of encouragement to those in need. As you do, you'll see how God's strength transforms not only your life, but the lives of those around you. As we continue to explore the limitless power of God's strength, it's important to recognize that His strength enables us to persevere no matter the obstacles we face. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and it's easy to become discouraged when things don't go as planned. But God's strength doesn't just help us survive. It empowers us to keep going, even when the road is tough. In Hebrews 12:1-2, the author writes, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." This passage reminds us that perseverance isn't just about enduring, it's about actively moving forward, staying focused, and trusting that God is with us every step of the way. God's strength gives us the endurance we need to keep running the race of life. Whether we're facing personal struggles, challenges at work, or difficulties in relationships, His strength empowers us to persevere. When we rely on God's strength, we can keep going even when we feel like giving up, because we know that He is with us, sustaining us with His power. From my own experience, I've learned that perseverance is not something we can generate on our own. There have been many times when I felt like I couldn't take another step, when I was exhausted and overwhelmed by the challenges in front of me. But in those moments, I turned to God and asked for His strength, and every time, He provided the endurance I needed. His strength doesn't just help us start the race, it helps us finish it. The beauty of God's strength is that it doesn't just carry us through the easy times, it carries us through the tough times too. It's in those moments of struggle that His power becomes most evident. When we persevere through trials, when we keep going despite the obstacles, we are demonstrating the strength that God has given us. And it's through this perseverance that we grow stronger, both in our faith and in our character. God's strength doesn't just help us endure, it helps us thrive in the midst of trials. It's the power to keep going, to keep pushing forward, and to trust that God is working in and through us. Every challenge we face is an opportunity to rely on His strength and to grow in perseverance. And as we continue to persevere, we see how God's power sustains us, transforming us into the people He has called us to be. So today, if you feel weary, discouraged, or ready to give up, I encourage you to turn to God for the strength you need to persevere. Trust that His power will carry you through, no matter what you're facing. Keep your eyes on Him and let His strength be the fuel that keeps you moving forward. With God's strength, you can run the race with perseverance, knowing that He will always be by your side, helping you finish strong. As we continue to delve into the unshakable power of God's strength, it's important to recognize that His strength is also the source of our joy. It may seem counterintuitive. How can we experience joy in the midst of struggle, in times when life feels like an uphill battle? But this is where God's strength truly shines. When we rely on His strength, we can experience joy even in the most difficult of circumstances. In Nehemiah 8:10, we are reminded, "Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." This verse is a beautiful promise that God's joy isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's a source of strength. The joy that comes from knowing God, from trusting in His plan for our lives, gives us the strength to face the hardest challenges with hope and perseverance. It's not a joy based on circumstances, but on a deep, unshakable trust in the God who is with us every step of the way. When we rely on God's strength, His joy becomes a wellspring of life within us. This joy doesn't depend on whether life is going smoothly or if everything is perfect. It comes from the deep knowledge that God is faithful, that He is in control, and that He will never leave us. This joy enables us to keep moving forward even when life is hard, because we know that God's strength is sustaining us. Personally, I've found that when I focus on God's goodness, His faithfulness, and the hope He offers, I can experience joy even in the midst of challenges. There have been times when life felt heavy, when I didn't know how I would make it through the day. But in those moments, I turned my heart toward God's promises, and His joy filled me with the strength I needed to keep going. It's a joy that surpasses understanding, and it is only found in Him. God's strength gives us the ability to endure hardships with a deep sense of peace and joy, knowing that He is with us. This doesn't mean we won't experience sorrow, pain, or loss, but it means that even in those moments, God's joy can still be a source of strength. It's a joy that allows us to rise above our circumstances, to find hope in the darkest times, and to trust that God is at work in ways we cannot always see. The joy of the Lord is a strength that empowers us to love others, to serve with gratitude, and to face life's difficulties with hope. When we rely on God's strength, we begin to see His joy in everything we do. We can experience joy in our relationships, in our work, and in our personal growth, because we know that God is with us and that He is the source of all our strength. So today, I encourage you to embrace the joy of the Lord. Let His joy be the foundation of your strength. No matter what challenges you're facing, remember that God's joy is available to you. It will fill you with the strength you need to keep moving forward, to face each day with hope, and to trust in His unchanging love. As we explore the depth and power of God's strength, it's crucial to understand that this strength doesn't just help us endure or grow, it also equips us for victory. When we rely on God's strength, we are empowered to overcome the challenges and obstacles that stand in our way. Life will throw challenges at us, but God's strength ensures that we are not defeated. With Him, we are more than conquerors. Romans 8:37 tells us, "No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us." This verse is a powerful reminder that God's strength is not just enough to help us get by. It is more than enough to give us victory over every challenge, every difficulty, and every trial we face. When we are connected to God's power, we are equipped to conquer, to triumph, and to live in victory no matter what life throws at us. God's strength doesn't just keep us standing in the face of adversity, it empowers us to rise above it. The trials we face don't have to defeat us. With God's strength, we can face each challenge head on, knowing that we are victorious through Him. This isn't about our own strength or abilities. It's about God's power working in us and through us, enabling us to overcome what we could never face on our own. From my personal experience, I've seen how God's strength leads to victory in ways I never expected. There have been times in my life when I thought a situation was impossible, when I thought I couldn't keep going, but it was in those moments that I leaned into God's strength. And time again, He has given me the victory. Not only did I make it through the tough times, but I emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident in His ability to carry me through anything. God's strength enables us to rise above our circumstances. It empowers us to take bold steps of faith, to face challenges with courage, and to keep going even when things seem impossible. When we trust in His power, we realize that nothing is too great for God. No obstacle is insurmountable. No dream is too big. With God's strength, we can conquer anything. But this victory isn't just about overcoming challenges. It's also about living in the fullness of God's purpose for our lives. God has a plan for each of us, and when we rely on His strength, we are equipped to live out that plan, to fulfill our calling, and to make a difference in the world. The victory we experience is not just personal, it is part of the greater victory of God's kingdom on earth. So today, I encourage you to stand firm in God's strength. Whatever challenges you're facing, whatever obstacles seem impossible, remember that God's strength is more than enough. You are more than a conqueror through Him. Trust in His power, lean into His strength, and step into the victory that He has already secured for you. As we conclude this journey of discovering the strength that God provides, I want to leave you with a final reminder. God's strength is not just something we tap into in times of need. It is something that is with us always. It is the foundation of our lives, the power that sustains us through every season, and the hope that enables us to live with purpose and confidence. Isaiah 40-29:3-1 reminds us of this truth. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This passage paints a beautiful picture of what happens when we place our hope in the Lord and rely on His strength. We are not only sustained, we are renewed, revitalized, and empowered to soar to new heights. When we lean on God's strength, we are never alone. No matter how weary we feel, no matter how heavy our burdens, we have access to an unshakable strength that will carry us through. God promises to renew our strength when we trust in Him, and His strength will always be sufficient to help us overcome whatever challenges lie ahead. Personally, I've come to realize that God's strength isn't just something I need in moments of struggle, it's something I need every day. It is the strength that helps me navigate life's ups and downs with peace and confidence. It's the strength that empowers me to keep moving forward, even when the way seems uncertain. And it's the strength that enables me to embrace God's purpose for my life, knowing that He is with me every step of the way. So today, I encourage you to remember this truth. God's strength is available to you at all times. Whether you're facing a storm or walking through a season of peace, His strength will sustain you. When you are weary, He will renew you. When you feel weak, He will empower you. When you are unsure, He will guide you. And when you are tired, He will give you rest. Let this truth be the foundation of your life. You are never alone. God's strength is always with you, and through Him, you can face anything. So, stand firm, lean into His power, and trust that with God's strength, you can do all things. The strength of God is a powerful force that empowers us to overcome life's challenges, endure hardships, and live out our true purpose. This strength is not only available in times of struggle, but is meant to sustain us through every season of life, guiding us, transforming us, and providing us with the resilience to persevere. Relying on God's strength enables us to grow in faith, experience joy, and serve others with love. It also equips us to live with confidence, knowing that God's power will always be sufficient for whatever we face. Through trusting in His strength, we can find peace in times of chaos, hope in times of despair, and victory in times of adversity. His strength transforms our weaknesses into opportunities for His power to shine through, and as we rely on Him, we grow in character, perseverance, and purpose. If you feel weary, discouraged, or unsure of how to move forward, I encourage you to take a step today and fully rely on God's strength. Trust in His power to renew and sustain you, no matter what challenges you face. Lean into His presence, seek His guidance, and allow His strength to fill you. Start by surrendering your worries and trusting that God has already equipped you for victory. Let His strength empower you to live with purpose, peace, and confidence. Embrace His promise that with Him you can do all things. Take a moment right now to reflect and pray. Ask God for the strength you need today and believe that He will provide. You are not alone, and His strength is more than enough to carry you through any storm.